ni ó tóbi ọlọ́run, ìwọ náà. Ó bímọ, ó bímọ, ó bímọ, ọmọ Sọláyọ̀, ìrẹ́ ló ń mú ẹsẹ̀ irun orí. Ìwọ dúdú ọmọ pupa, báwo ló ṣe rí? Wáídì ọmọ Ṣẹ̀kínà, ọmọ Múyìínà, ọmọ Muhammad. Wáídì ọmọ Ṣẹ̀kínà, ọmọ Múyìínà, ọmọ Muhammad. Fojú mi rí màbo nílé, màbo lóko, màbo lẹ́kọ̀ọ́. Màmá tóbi, má rẹ̀ ní màmá mi. Èmi náà bí tèmi. Táwọn lọ, fọmọ tán ẹ̀. Má kò tilẹ̀ bá mi. Àbọ̀rọ̀ láti ọmọlúwàbí, bọ́wá dénú rẹ̀ àtò díndín.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Dialogue. This is a series on the state of education, particularly basic education in Nigeria. The Dialogue is sponsored by Wole Soyinka Center for Investigative Journalism, WSCIJ, under its Regulators Monitoring Program, REMO, and it's brought to you by Strictly Speaking in partnership with Premium Times. I am Bimbo Oloyede, and I'm your host for this 6-part series. Our discussions are based on stories that were written by journalists who were sponsored to observe, investigate, and report on issues related to basic education. In this 4th episode of The Dialogue, I'm going to be joined by Chidinma Okeke, a reporter with the Daily Trust newspaper, and Abdulsalam Amo, who is the founder of EduCeleb. We're also expecting some special guests to join us, and we'll welcome them in due course. Today, we're going to be discussing the state of infrastructure in state-owned primary and junior secondary schools across the country, because obviously, infrastructure is a critical element which affects the quality of education. But before we begin our discussions, as usual, here is a little bit of information about Nigerian schools that gives us some insights into the situation on the ground. A 2019 report by EduCeleb reveals that at least 579 classrooms across Nigeria are in bad condition. These findings were extracted from a national survey published by the Federal Ministry of Education that same year. The survey involved 1.1 million classrooms in government and private-owned schools across the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. And according to Moody's, a leading rating agency, Nigeria's infrastructure gap is estimated at 3 trillion naira. That is 6 times the size of its annual GDP. Well, in July 2021, Business Day reported that Nigeria's infrastructure deficit has been one of the biggest factors holding back its growth and development. So let me welcome formally to the dialogue Abdul Salam Amo. Welcome, Abdul Salam.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Now, you're the founder of EduCeleb, which is an online resource covering the education sector. The figure that you published 2 years ago indicated that as at that time, about 1/3 of the country's classrooms were in a state of disrepair. How did you come to that conclusion? Because that's a pretty large number.
The data was sourced from the Federal Ministry of Education through its Basic Education Management Information System, and it was part of a national survey that was conducted by the government in 2018 towards gathering accurate data representative of the state of basic education in the country. Basically, the UBEC and some of its collaborators in states and some consultants were involved in the gathering of the data. And at the end of the day, they found out that based on the proportion of states that have good classrooms to bad classrooms, we have a case of states like Kebbi, Bauchi, Sokoto, Borno, and Adamawa having a higher proportion of bad classrooms compared with good classrooms. And regarding the states that have the highest number of classrooms that are in bad shapes, we have states like Kano, Kaduna, Akwa Ibom, Imo, Benue, and the rest. According to UNESCO, as you earlier made reference to it, UNESCO describes a good classroom as one with electricity, internet access, computers, single-sex toilets, clean drinking water, among other facilities that should be put in place. And according to UNESCO, the situation of infrastructural deficits at the basic education level is affecting over 617 million students around the world. So the problem is, as much as it's a global problem, in Nigeria, I believe beyond what the statistics from the government says, I believe it's even more than that, because this data doesn't take care of some of our findings that we'll be discussing here regarding the availability of classrooms itself in the first place.
Mm-hmm. It's not the best picture that you're painting, but obviously it is not as if it is just a Nigerian problem. This is something that is global. But well, that doesn't mean that we should just accept it because it's happening in other parts of the world. Okay, I'll come back to you shortly about your investigations. In the meantime, Chidinma Okeke, welcome from your base in Abuja. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, ma. Thank you. Good morning.
Great. Yeah. So you wrote a story in January 2020 on behalf of your newspaper, the Daily Trust. You assessed the state of infrastructure in schools in the Federal Capital Territory and Nasarawa State. What did you find?
Yeah, actually the project was meant to look at the state of UBEC's projects across these schools. And to be honest, the truth is that the state of the projects are in very, very bad shape. I found out that irrespective of the 311 million project I said were in ruins, actually they are more than that. It's just that the ones that are under review based on the action plans that was used for the investigation, That's why we came up with that 311 million. But then the truth is that some of these projects are there, some were missing, and then some of them that were there are in a very bad shape. And then a lot of schools are also in need of these infrastructures. I also find out that some of these things were raised, buildings were there, but the schools were not allowed to use them. And then they leave them there for a period of time. And before you know it, the building will just go down like that without use. They are being put to use. And another thing I found out was that most of these schools lack furniture. You find out they will come and build up a structure, and yet there's no single furniture in a school. And you begin to wonder why, if it is, I remember asking UBEC if it is prohibited for schools to be built with furniture, and they said no. And then another thing again, I found out that these projects are not even old. Some of the buildings, I saw a project that was out of use within 3 months after completion. In fact, students were in the class according to what the school management told us when the class came down on the students. So based on what UBEC said, they said at least a project should at least last for 10 years before it will start going down. But most of these projects, you see some are even 3 months and they are gone. You see some are less than years and then they've been abandoned. You find out that some of the new projects were even abandoned and they will go back to the old ones that are already in a very bad shape. So there's a lot of things that when it comes to this basic infrastructure in our school, and it's actually very worrisome. And another thing I find out is that most of these schools lack toilet facilities. And it exposes children to some dangers because they are forced to go to bush. And then in a place where they have just 1 or 2, the teachers will be using them, and then the students will be asked to go and find a place to ease themselves when it comes to that. And these are some of the major things. Another issue is this issue of perimeter fencing, which many of the schools lack, especially schools in the rural area. And considering the state of security in the nation now, it exposes a lot of children to danger. So I think for me, note that UBEC has actually reached out to most schools, but there are still some schools that have never felt the impact of UBEC in terms of projects. Another thing I found out is that most schools get projects that they don't really need. Like you can see a schools that actually they have enough classrooms, but the classrooms are not well furnished. And then you see they will still go ahead and give them another project for class instead of furnishing the ones they have. Another thing again I found out is that sometimes when they erect some of these buildings for some schools, they leave the schools there for years without handing over to schools. And then the schools will not make you put them to use. And they will tell you they are waiting for UBEC to come hand over to them. And some of the findings were, okay. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I'm sorry to cut you off.
Okay.
But yes, we'll continue.
Okay.
We'll continue finding out about your observations a little later. I'm actually hoping that the executive secretary of the Universal Basic Education Commission is going to be on this call. And there's also the possibility of some of the chairmen of state, shall I call them SUBEBs. I'm hoping that they will also be here. Even if they don't speak, they are expected to be observers, because I think they all really need to hear the results of your various investigations. Well, whilst we're waiting for them to join the call, thank you anyway, Chidima, for the very vivid and explicit descriptions that you've given us. I will come back to you shortly. Well, Abdusalam, apart from the investigations that you did and the reports that you brought out, you also went to Enugu State specifically. You published an article based on the schools that you investigated there. I think this was in February 2020, if I'm not mistaken. Perhaps you can also give us a little bit of information about what you found there. As I said, I'm hoping that the Executive Secretary of UBEC, Dr. Hamid Buboyi, will join us.
Thank you very much. So among other, just like Chidinma noted, we have issues around lack of toilet facilities, but before we actually talk about that, the facilities meant for students to learn are not available. We have a situation where a majority of children sit on the floor, bare floor, in a number of schools there, where only 20 chairs were provided for a population of 500 pupils. We have cases where classrooms are shared. One classroom is shared by three classes. Let's say we have a classroom like this. We have a section of the same classroom without demarcation shared by those in primary 1, primary 2, primary 3, something like that. We have cases of leaking roofs. We have cases of disproportionate facilities where, for instance, those children should be given plastic chairs, but because there is no plastic chair, they are given the wooden chairs. And we have some other issues around that. The issue of lack of fencing and some other things Chidinma noted were also part of the findings from Enugu in both the rural and urban areas of the state.
I think I should go back to Chidinma at this point. I noticed that you said that there were, Abdul Salam, I noticed that you mentioned 20 chairs for 500 students. Did I hear right?
Yes. Yes, madam.
All right. Now, Chidinma, the headline of your report referred to 311 million naira worth of projects in the FCT and Nasarawa State. You said they were in ruins. Can you explain further? Because if money has been spent and buildings have been erected, how were they in ruins?
Okay, yeah, the 311 million we were talking about, these are projects that have been put on ground, but they're in ruins because they were not taken care of. Some were even left halfway. You know, they were not completed and then they were abandoned for years. And then these are projects that the schools actually need, but then they were left in room. So how we came about this 300 million, out of the whole projects that we looked at, but I visited like 9 schools in the investigation. Out of some of the projects, some are still in good shape. So the ones that are in ruins, we were able to put out a figure because using the action plan, we were able to come out with how much they used to execute each of these projects, and then how they left the projects to be in that shape. So we're able to come up with the 311 million from the ones that are in really, really bad shape. But like I said, this is not just what we saw, but because of it was just the ones under review, based on the ones we were able to pick from the action plan. But there are other projects that are even in ruins, but which we did not add because we did not add them as the ones under review. That was how we came about this money.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. Well, this is the Dialogue Education series. We're highlighting the state of education, particularly basic education in Nigeria. And the dialogue is sponsored by Wole Soyinka Center for Investigative Journalism under its Regulators Monitoring Program, REMOP, and it's brought to you by Strictly Speaking in partnership with Premium Times. We'd like to acknowledge all those who are following the dialogue on Facebook, and we appreciate all your comments. Please do keep your contributions coming. After all, education affects all of us, and your opinions are very valuable to us. Perhaps I should even use this opportunity to share with you some of the comments that we've had from previous editions of the dialogue. They are quite succinct, and I think they are useful to our conversations. Somebody by the name of Joanna says that she is an expat volunteer teacher trained in Jeddah, Kwara State. She says that I can tell you from personal experience that public schools in this area are understaffed or unstaffed. The governor laid off all teachers hired 2019 to 2020, taking away the only government-paid teacher in Fangung for 200 children. She says quite a lot of things, but let me just summarize it here. I just have to bury my head in the work of the one private school I have influence in. All our teachers have training in teaching phonics and reading, all receive continual training in methodology that increases teacher effectiveness. But what about the rest of Jebba, let alone Nigeria? That's a weighty question. Thank you very much for your comment, Joanna. Obafemi says that there should be social synergy between the school and the community. And yet again, we have Hassan, who says that there can't be an act of criminality without the assistance of an insider. If you recall, the last two episodes, we concentrated on insecurity, and complicity was one of the things that we discussed. Okay, and Debbie says that a return to the old school method, as much as it's idealistic, rhetoric will not work. Unfortunately, our cultural, indigenous, societal values will not be able to withstand the constant and continuing clash with modernity. Well, there are a few more questions and remarks here, but perhaps as this edition progresses, we'll be able to take them. Okay, so let's go back to our conversation. Have we yet been joined by Dr. Boboyi? It doesn't look like that to me. I'm trying to go through our list of participants, and I don't see that he has joined us yet.
Yeah, he's just joined.
Oh, he's just joined. All right. Great. You're welcome, Dr. Hamid Boboyi. Thank you very much for joining this call. Good morning and welcome. You're the Executive Secretary of UBEC. We've been talking about infrastructure, and we actually do have some questions for you. Good morning once again. Doctor, are you there? I'm not sure if he's having a few technical issues. We all love the idea of technology, but sometimes we're not totally in control of it. Dr. Hamid Boboyi, good morning.
Good morning, madam. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well. Welcome to the
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much for joining us.
Okay, sorry for the hiccups in connection, but at least we can talk.
Great.
We were a bit more ambitious of trying to bring about 5 chairmen into the discussion who are with me even now, but it has been a bit difficult doing that.
Okay, all right. But if they are within earshot, I'm sure they'll be able to, listen to our conversation and certainly hear what you are saying. So,
yeah, exactly. They are listening.
Okay, great. I'm sure that you are very familiar with UNESCO's recommendations for certain basic requirements in schools. Unfortunately, you didn't hear our two reporters when they were giving us a description of the results of investigations that they made in 1 or 2 states in the country. But from their reports and some of the experiences shared by them, some of these facilities do not appear to be available. What is UBEC really doing to address this infrastructural deficit?
Thank you very much for the question. And I'm glad that the owners of the schools are also here with us. UBEC, first and foremost, I think we need to set the record straight. It's an intervention agency. It's an agency which is set up to see how it could support states in making sure that access is provided, opportunities are provided to each and every Nigerian child. The various infrastructural facilities, as far as the resources that are available, can be applied to see how we can at least meet these infrastructural challenges. And also areas that we don't get involved, particularly the issue of teachers, where now the state governments is going to take the responsibility using the various accounts, including the joint, state local government funds that are also provided, by the Federation account. The challenges about infrastructure is real. And I've always said that. In the sense that if you look at certain zones, particularly certain geopolitical zones, the deficits have been piling up over so many years, where you find, for example, looking at, as an example, the Northwest Zone. Enrollment has been increasing. Now getting to about 8.9 million children within that particular zone. The resources that are available to ensure that infrastructure is provided has not been increasing at that rate as our population is increasing. So at the end of the day, we end up with real challenges where even the available infrastructure is being degraded by the large numbers that are there within the system. And you find that, isn't it, in different parts of the country where these things are. For UBEC, of course, the major intervention has been the matching grant, where states are expected to provide counterpart funding. And these are the funds that a lot of states leverage on to see that they could provide the basic infrastructure. And I think looking at what is going on, yes, some progress has been made, but the truth also must be told. Based on the level of expenditure as a nation that we are putting into the basic education sector, the rate of dilapidation will keep on, it's going to be progressive. The only thing is that we are stemming the tide. We are reducing that particular rate by those interventions. I think as a nation, we are spending, almost we're at the bottom as far as other countries are concerned in terms of the percentage of GDP that we are spending on basic education. And unless as a nation we realize that, I think we have challenges that will keep on being compounded as we move through. States are also putting in their own resources into this process in terms of building new schools, in terms of a lot of other interventions. And I think we need to have a holistic view of the entire picture to be able to say that, yes, first to appreciate the challenges that we are there. We have real problems on the ground. And I think this is something that we cannot run away from. The problems are real.
Yeah.
And based on the current resources that we have, the problems will continue. But at the same time, as a nation, I think also to appreciate efforts that are being made at different levels in terms of provision of infrastructure, in terms of the UBEC funding, in terms of what states are also putting into this process. And then as a nation also to have the determination to see how we can really push into those frontiers and ensure that we can meet these standards set by UNESCO that you are talking about.
Thank you very much, Doctor. We actually appreciate the status of UBEC as an intervention agency, and we equally appreciate the interventions that the UBEC is making. But the truth also is that, we've heard about allocated funds, we've read about allocated funds, but untraceable projects. So I'm not sure whether to say that transparency could be the issue, could be the challenge, but I imagine that when funds are disbursed at the federal level to the state governments, to the state branches of UBEC, I suppose that such funds are actually being monitored. Yes, I mean, how do you monitor these funds, and how can you verify claims at state level?
Okay, thank you very much again, Ebuka, for the question. I think as an intervention agency, UBEC must address these issues in a very, very fundamental way. But let me also make another correction that I made earlier. Please, SUBEBs are not branches of UBEC. SUBEBs are established by state law, not by federal.
Okay.
They are part and parcel of the state. And what, what the law of, the UBE Act had established is requiring the establishment of SUBEB that can serve as counterparts of UBEC at the federal level. They don't report to UBEC, they report to their state governments. They have their own boards. So I think we need to make that clarification so that we have a clearer picture of the basic education structure. Now, UBEC disburses funds to SUBEBs. When SUBEBs pay their own counterpart funding, we transfer the funds and so on and so forth. About monitoring, let's not forget that UBEC goes every quarter for financial monitoring to look at the books of SUBEBs, to determine how funds are spent and so on and so forth, to make sure that these funds are spent properly. At the level of project monitoring, yes, we have to first and foremost accept the fundamental fact that we are dealing with a subnational entity where we give money, we monitor, but we also expect SUBEBs to monitor also effectively the project that they have. It's difficult for us to come and say, okay, now you can pay the first stage, you can pay the second stage, because this does not respect our state. And ours is to say, okay, we live in a federal system where the federation has such responsibilities, the state has such responsibilities. Having given out the money, we come for inspection when the state tells us that it is ready. The project that it has given out had been completed. And by the way, even before the completion, we also go for either timely monitoring that is being undertaken to ensure that these projects are going right. Of course, any construction in Nigeria that is done by contractors and so on and so forth, there has to be more effective monitoring. Perhaps you could find lapses in different places. Don't forget that we are almost in every village in this country. We have to move, SUBEBs that control the system at the state level are also involved in each and in every nook and corner of the state that it is dealing with. So there could be some problems, but at the end of the day, the SUBEB monitoring and other monitoring, to make sure that it reduces. Again, nobody in Nigeria can tell you that there are no problems as far as these processes are concerned. We know what goes on. We know the realities that are there. But the effort is to ensure that we get value for money, and at the end of the day, we can tell the people of Nigeria, yes, we are making effort to change the paradigm as far as basic education is concerned. Now, one more point on that aspect. I think I've always also encouraged non-governmental organizations, please go out, see where problems are, draw attention to some of these problems. And a lot of progress, again, has been made in different states, where these organizations are out and making a lot of progress in tracking projects. But there are some organizations that are also interested in publicity, missing projects about this, and so on and so forth. And I find this particularly in the area of constituency projects and others, where locations are changed. A lot of these projects sometimes also, even at the SUBEB level, if they find that there are similar, there are some infrastructure that may not, a particular school may not need a particular infrastructure, they move that. But they have to come to UBEC to come and ask for no objection of moving these locations. So locations change. And sometimes I think by the time somebody goes to a particular place, he doesn't find anything. He goes to the press and say, "Oh, there are some projects that are missing." There are challenges. There are challenges. But at the end of the day, I think we have to put that in context and appreciate, the effort that have been made in moving the subsector forward.
Okay, Doctor. I've listened to your explanation, and I'm actually wondering whether there needs to be a bridging of certain gaps, because the way and manner that the scenario has been painted, and I'm not castigating you in any way, but it does seem as if, okay, so at the federal level, we give the states money, and then the states now decide what they're going to do with it and how they're going to spend it. And the buck does not really seem to end on anybody's table, because it doesn't look as if you can actually hold anybody responsible. Now,
no. Please understand the system. I think we need to understand the system very, very well. One, we don't give money without going through a process.
I understand.
And that's when, when we tell the state, look here, for a particular year, that's the money that is available for matching grants. And now the state has to have an action plan. We cannot, as federal government, at a federal level, go and determine to the state, no, that's why you have to put this school, that school, and so on and so forth. Otherwise, it becomes direct intervention, because they also have their own funds that they are bringing as part of the counterpart funding. They bring the action plan. We assess the action plan and see whether it is implementable and approve the action plan. And they go to implement, the action plan that has been approved. And that's the reason why, even if they want to change location, they have to come back to us. A lot of the NGOs that come, we tell them that, look here, you should have asked us instead of saying that projects have been missing. You should have asked us where, what permission or what application had the state made in terms of changing locations. Locations change, and I have made that comment earlier.
Yes, you did.
Now, I think, we also have to come and again, understand. Thereafter, the monitoring process also take place. But if a state cannot account for the money that had been granted us, the UBE Act makes it very clear it cannot get the next tranche of funding.
Okay.
So there are a lot of these safeguards. The buck has to end in a federal system, isn't it? There has to be joint responsibility.
Fair enough. So there are enough checks and balances.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well,
definitely there are, because again we have to work together. And I think, ironically, that's even the meeting we are having. And that's why you have a lot of the chairmen, the deans of the various zones coming to say, okay, let's look at certain areas that, we need to explore and need to change. How do we build more synergy? How do we, check this, check that, and so on and so forth. And I think we have to understand that UBEC on its own cannot make a real difference on the ground unless and until it works with the stakeholders that are there, isn't it, on the ground. And here, stakeholders in terms of the suburbs, in terms of even, isn't it, other sectors of the educational system, the NGOs, and the communities. We just came back, of the flag of the school-based management committees in Calabar. And the key issue is that how do we also engineer our communities, get them, motivate them to participate in sustaining school infrastructure, in making sure that the teachers that go to teach their children go into the classroom and teach. And in ensuring at least that level of accountability within the communities. As a nation, unless again we can push that particular mantra in terms of education for the responsibility of all, where the children will have to get involved, the parents will have to get involved, the authorities at the local government level, at the state level, and at the federal level. can build a synergy. At the end of the day, isn't it? We all now act different scripts, and I think it's very important for us to take that into account.
Thank you very much. So you're actually advocating an education for all, by all, so that we actually have a holistic plan and holistic view of education. Thank you, Doctor. Well, let me remind everybody that this is The Dialogue, a series on the state of education, particularly basic education in Nigeria. And The Dialogue is sponsored by the Wole Soyinka Center for Investigative Journalism under its Regulators Monitoring Program in partnership with Strictly Speaking and Premium Times. Now, at this point in the program, it's our usual template to point towards recommendations and solutions. Doctor, for the past couple of weeks, we've actually been looking at insecurity. It's a hot topic all over the country, and particularly in schools. Now, we are talking about infrastructure, quite all right. And we did hear in earlier episodes that the roads were bad. Many of the roads leading to schools were pretty, inaccessible, which actually makes it safe for those children who have to trek for long distances and that sort of thing. Now, as an agency,
definitely
a way that you could perhaps collaborate with other federal government agencies to address some of these bad roads and this inaccessibility that children are faced with.
Definitely.
Hello, Doctor. Are you there? Do we have a network? Okay, so I'll come back to him, hoping that we can hear each other. Abdul Salam, you've been quiet for some time, not through any fault of yours. You've visited many schools. From your experience, if you were asked to advise UBEC, perhaps about reducing some of the areas where there could be wastage, especially regarding the physical structures in schools, what kind of advice would you give UBEC?
Reducing wastage. Well, what we have is a case of insufficiency in the first place. So I don't see like anything we can call wastage at this stage we are in the country. Many of our schools are not. Okay.
Let me explain.
All right.
Because you see, from the reports that I read, that you wrote and Chidinma also wrote, there were situations where buildings were erected, but because they were not properly done, because some of the infrastructural aspects were not up to required standards, they didn't last long. Okay. For me, that's waste.
Of course. Do
you understand?
Yes. Yes,
so that is the angle that I'm coming from. Yes, and then of course, if you do have any other suggestions or advice, please go ahead.
All right. I understand that. Thank you. So the major problem there is regarding the awarding of the contracts at the state level. Most times, these contracts are awarded to cronies of politicians, and at the end of the day, is whatever is left out of the money that they've shared among each other that is eventually used in doing the project. I experienced that across some parts of the Enugu state when I visited there. So some contractors were even telling me that there's nothing I can do about whatever they do, that they have the backing of somebody else and all sorts of things like that. So it is a problem from the awarding of the contract and all those at that level, first and foremost. Secondly, the funds. So it appears that the funds provided are not sufficient to take care of the needs identified. Just like the government has identified that certain schools are, certain classrooms are in bad shape, the funds that are going to be allocated to address this problem would not sufficiently address the problem. That's what happened at the school I mentioned, where we have 500 students in the school, pupils in the school, but 20 chairs were provided, and those are single chairs for 500 pupils, pre-primary school. So the funds that are allocated for this are not commensurate to the problem, in addressing the problem. This should be addressed even after clearly government has identified the problem. And many of these schools, school heads have always been writing their governments, calling on radio and doing a lot of advocacy on their own towards addressing the problem, but little is done. So funding is a major problem there. And thirdly, there should be proper monitoring. There should be proper monitoring. When you say that a project should be done at a particular place and it is done and it's not done well, who is being penalized for not doing it well? This is a problem that should be addressed at various levels, as the case may be. We hope that I hope that with all this, we have a better infrastructure in our basic schools.
All right, thank you very much. So what I am getting from you, Abdul Salam, you're talking about funds being inadequate. You're talking about the way and manner in which contracts are being awarded, and you're talking about monitoring. And if anybody is found wanting, they should be penalized.
Yes. Exactly.
All right, thank you. Is Dr. Boboyi back? Is the connection clear now? Okay, we still seem to be having a problem. So Chidima, are you there?
Yes, Ma'am, I'm here.
Great. So what would you say? How would you advise not just UBEC now, but SUBEB as well? Because on this call we have both the executive secretary and fortunately there's a meeting taking place with some of the chairmen of the SUBEBs. So what would you advise them to do?
Yes, first of all, I will say it is important that they take this needs assessment seriously, because there are schools, just even though Dr. Hamid has said that some projects the locations are being changed, but the truth is that they give some schools what they don't need. And then I think it's important that before they approve any fund, another fund for an existing project, it's important that they go back to and review those projects. Because I was able to see some projects whereby if one particular project, every year they allocate fund for the same project, and these are projects that have been completed, and then they keep getting additional funds. So if they are able to go back and review these projects, I'm sure they will not allocate more funds for them. And another thing again, irrespective of the UBEC boards have said that they are monitoring, I think there's poor monitoring. Like they should have an independent monitoring group for me, because he as a health, they give him report that they've gone there. But the truth is that sometimes they're not there. I remember I asked most of these schools and they told me that they've not seen, they will tell you the last time they saw UBEC staffs coming for any form of monitoring, it has been years. Now, some of them are even, they stopped at the local government headquarters or wherever, and they discussed there and they sort them out and they go. And they don't go to the roots to find out what the issue is. So it's important that we consider all those things. Yes, there are problems, just like he said. And another thing again is that they should also try to liaise with school authority. Because some of these people are always telling you that they're ignorant of what is going on. Because sometimes, okay, I understand they get community and parents involved in their projects. But the truth is that some of these people make things worse. Like if the school needs just furniture and they believe that, okay, when we apply for furniture, we can get like 1.5 million to furnish our classrooms. They will tell you, why don't you go for renovation, which can give us like 8 million? And in reality, these schools don't need those things. So these are some of the things that UBEC need to really, really put in place to stop some of these wastages that are going on in the schools.
Thank you very much, Chidima. So let's add to the recommendations. You're talking about proper needs assessments. You're talking about reviewing projects properly before issuing new funds. Although I recall that the executive secretary did say that projects were monitored before funds were released for new projects. You're talking about poor monitoring, and you're suggesting that there should be an independent monitoring committee established. Okay, and then I think the last thing you talked about is that the school authorities should be brought in, maybe the principals.
Yes.
Yes, so that they are probably in a better position to indicate what they really need.
Needs, yes, ma'am. Okay,
all right. Thank you very much. Now, I'm still hoping that Dr. Boboyi is available. Is technology being kind to us right now? It is.
He is available.
He's available. Wonderful.
Available. We have two numbers here, two accounts here.
Okay. So you heard some of those recommendations. I don't know if you want to respond to any of them.
I think there are also questions on the live that have been sent to you. Maybe you may check.
Okay. Let's see. I have here from Tubosun Ogundare. He's talking about, this is a message from Facebook. He says his personal observation is that both UBEC and SUBEB and various state governments, they're playing politics with UBEC resources. For example, governors, is it governors? Yes. Consider schools mostly on major roads where people pass through, leaving others in the hinterland to their fate. He said he was somewhere in Osun State 2 weeks ago, and he visited 2 primary schools, and there were no UBEC projects in any of them. In fact, in 25 years. Yet, according to him, up to 12.5 billion was said to have been released between 2005 and 2019 to the state. Well, Dr. Boboyi, he has a question directly for you. He says, can you react to this? Statistics of schools with them and also doing monitoring. No, I can't quite understand his question, but you heard basic observation.
Yes, I did.
You'd like to react to it.
Okay.
Is what he's talking about. Politics with UBEC funding.
What it means, maybe I can clarify. What he has said is that you realize that most state governors, they only go through, they only repair some schools that are on the roadside in major cities, and the interiors are left unattended to. And that particularly in Osun, it was in Ifewara 2 weeks ago. Ifewara is in the Ijesha axis of Osun State. And what he saw is that in that particular community, and that surprisingly is also the community where the general overseer of the Redemption Church of Nigeria is from, that in the last 25 years, there has been no single UBEC intervention in that particular community. So he's afraid that what actually is happening in terms of the people playing politics with the location of such project. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Do I need to, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you clearly, sir.
Okay. No, thank you very much. I think we appreciate this comment from different groups, organizations, and so on. And so it helps us. Number one, I think let me look at the monitoring aspects. We have, tried different things. We have even gotten at a point consultants that we got that would also help us in this process. At the moment, we are talking with Corel to be part of that process, so that at least the integrity of what what we are doing at both the UBEC and SUBEB levels could be sustained, and at least we could see a visible effort of making sure that we deliver quality projects. And it's something that we are committed to. So whatever suggestion that someone has in terms of helping, there are those that can work.
Hello? Doctor, we seem to...
And what's that
okay.
Oshun case? We don't get this. Hello? I mean, if you look at the Oshun case, for example, we cannot go to that level of trying to see, okay, to go into the politics of Oshun. It's something that we cannot do at a federal level. We will not want to. But what we do is that at every defense of any project, when suburbs are getting money, they tabulate these projects and tell us where the projects are cited. And so I think there are certain safeguards that we put within the system to ensure that this is done. About projects, again, now before even if a state submits its action plan, we have zonal officers that go and check to verify the claims that are also put. And if there are problems, to discuss with the state. Look here, there could be a problem with this. Last year, we committed this, and so on and so forth. It's a little bit, isn't it, more rigorous process. We are even now going to another level. We hope we can, but the technology is still not very helpful in the sense of using, having the GPS coordinates of project, the e-monitoring process. It has started, but there are still certain things, because getting the satellite feed sometimes that can give you a 3D image is not that easy. It's very expensive. So it's something that we are looking at and trying to get maybe some NGO somewhere, international NGO, that can give us this satellite feed so that we can. But satellite feeds cannot also tell you much about integrity of ability. You have to be there. And I think these are processes that are ongoing, and we value comments about observations and so on and so forth. That's what will help us to move forward as a nation. So we thank you immensely for those observations and comments. And I think it's something that we hope, as we are moving forward, we can really put this into. But please, what we are also asking for these people who are making observations, we are not enemies, we are partners.
Absolutely.
If you have a question, tell us. If you have some problem that you have encountered, tell us. If we can give you the explanation, we can get the suburbs to give you the explanation. If there are no explanations and there are certain infractions, we then, pick it up from there. It doesn't help us for someone just to look at something and then say, oh, there's a problem there, something has been committed, and in that manner, I think there are a lot of people within this system who have very good intentions and who are moving forward to see how we can make that difference. It is the future of our children, it's the future of our nation. And so we are calling upon the press, we are calling upon each and every stakeholder to ensure that we can all move forward.
Thank you very much, Dr. Baboyi. Indeed, it is a task that requires everybody's input, and that's why we are holding this series. That's why the Dialogue Education Series is going out live right now. We appreciate your comments. And I think you will agree with me that at least we've been able to come up with about 6 or 7 solid recommendations and suggestions as to how we can go about improving the education sector going forward. And I'm sure that by the time we have finished the 6 episodes, we will have a pretty comprehensive list of suggestions that you will be able to find useful. So indeed, on our part, we will keep on doing what we can, and I'm sure that our other colleagues in the press will also do the same thing. So this is the education series. I believe we have had an enlightening program. We've talked about infrastructure. I want to remind you once again that this program is sponsored by the Wole Soyinka Center for Investigative Journalism, and is brought to you by Strictly Speaking in partnership with Premium Times. I want to thank my guests most sincerely. Dr. Hamid Boboyi, Executive Secretary, Universal Basic Education Commission, Thank you very much for sparing time to join us today. I think you have you've shone a light on a few gray areas for some of us. I think we can see a little bit more clearly now. I want to thank my colleagues, Chidima Okeke with Daily Trust newspaper, and Abdusalam Amo, founder of EduCeleb. And many thanks to everyone that's been watching and commenting. It's been an enlightening edition, and I was very pleased to host it. So join me again next week when we take on a different aspect of basic education in Nigeria. My name is Bimbo Oloyede. See you again.
We don't have to go